life, but mainly what I call something of an occultation. And this means that where everything has some deeper level or esoteric meaning that's happening to you, whether you're aware of it or not. So I'm one of those individuals that at the age of 26, I was fully aware that there was more going on to the reality and that there was other planes. And it became so difficult for me to convince myself that this was not real. It became a lot more easier to just accept that it was real. Meaning that as a very logical, rational person, I had come across things and experiences that allowed me to see very vividly that there was a spiritual world, that there was in fact knowledge and information that was far beyond the scope of what we're generally taught, and also that there was a humongous plot going on, and not somewhat, but definitely a war taking place, an inner war and an outer war. And so this is what I woke up to at the age of about 26, off of living still a
This isn't what I
spiritual
usually
life,
use.
or half spiritual life, like most people.
I usually use like a
But still
jelly.
having a deeper seed planted when I was younger. My mother was born and raised in Detroit. I was born in Detroit. And she was in the movement. So there was a lot of different things that we did not do. Like I was homeschooled. We didn't watch TV. We made our own clothes. So there was a lot of things that pressed this point that I'm at now, because how I'm viewing a lot of
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how this one goes. I like the one that I usually use, but I guess I picked up the wrong jar today, or that day.
Just that real experience with spirituality made her transformation.
Well, you said you had the reality after your mother had passed on. Now, you said used the word transformation. That means to me that there is some type of life or another type of plane after death. Can you explain that?
Sure. Well, just to correct it, my mother made a transformation, and I think this transformation is likening to death, because you're a completely different individual, but she is still alive as far as on the planet, but she did make several transformations within her spiritual ascent. And so what I'm talking about is this transformation in what appears to be degrees.
I
can explain what
have everything I need almost here.
It's degrees of the energy.
I just need
as fire is measured in degrees. But we live this life that if we're on a spiritual path, or path of the soul, I should just give it that real interpretation. But if you're on the path of the soul and the way back to the soul,
here I get my edge control brush.
Stronger and stronger as you get what appears to be closer to it. So each time, though, there's an upgrade. There's a dying or shedding of the old shell, and then there's this rebirth that takes place, and you are in a new character, a new state of mind, as long as you have prepared yourself for these processes. So, of course, what generally holds people back from making multiple levels of transformation within themselves to perfection is the stagnancy of being in one frequency for a prolonged period of time, or in one chakra, or in one world for one particular period of time. And so this is about what the ancestors gave us instructions on, which was cycling the energy, and taking it all the way up and then bringing it down. So, of course, there's a mental, physical, and spiritual correspondence to all this. And then, obviously, as seeds, we are in territory where there's birds that will pluck you up. There's hard ground where you won't be able to set your roots deep. There's different perils on the path. And so if you can make it through, you will develop into what is the complete form of this universe. We have it in ourselves microcosmically. There is a higher degree of its power.
Well, let me ask you now, there are people that say that they have the death experiences, like where they were in an accident and they feel that they're removed from their body. There are other individuals that, have had situations where they actually died and ended up in almost morgues and they came back. Do you believe from your studies that these people have experienced life after death, or is it something entirely different?
Oh, for sure. Well, really what they've experienced is the space that their next body that they go into is inhabiting. And so if we just look at a simple system, let's say there's 5 bodies, and each of these bodies are more subtle. And the most dense one is our physical body. So when the physical body is traumatized, like if it receives a fatal blow, or it gets sick and it starts to go into heavy levels of decay, then the soul will immediately go into the body that we generally use while we're dreaming.
Alright, you guys.
And it will use that body.
I make my own
the person will be
leave-in
more
conditioner.
conscious, more of their actual presence will reside in that body. So we can
It's
look at
got
these
some
bodies like
actual
vehicles.
leave-in conditioner
So they
in
jump
it,
into that
and then it
vehicle, and
also
then they
has
observe
water
what is going
and
on. And
oils,
we
different
have stories
oils.
about this, watching themselves even getting to the hospital, flying over the ambulance, because it's known that the next body, what you call the dream body, will always attempt to go back into the physical body. It's anchored to the physical body until the cord is cut. So until it's completely lifeless, and even sometimes after what people think is lifeless, there's a return sometimes of the spirit back into inanimating that body, because it has desire to be back in that body so much it's been able to reanimate it. And so this is what we're talking about. You can see on the spiritual plane, by graveyards, you see spirits still around their body, confused about why exactly they cannot animate their body. So, it gets into deeper levels of that space. So what happens also is that, let's say, you leave the body, you watch your body drive off, basically, and then you begin to wander in the opposite direction, just away from that conscious reality of what you believed is you on the planet. You will then start going into different spaces. And depending on the degree of your spirit, the ability to travel, astral travel, whether this kind of plane is foreign to you, because there are many people who practice going on to this plane, like lamas, etc., all the time. So to them, it's not experiencing death. They even know when they're going to die. So it's a whole different thing. They just see it as the time where this husk, this shell is going to shed, and they've already started preparing the next vehicle, just as a frog's body actually overlaps the tadpole.
Alright guys, let's get started on this. I got the first few out. I always start from the back. You're supposed to start from the back. Very important. And as you can see, my locks in the back have been going through it. Look at the lack of length on the last few in the back. It's really crazy, actually. It's rough back there.
Like in some of the Buddhist practices, like they claim, like the Delta High Lama, when he is close to passing on, there's a child chosen, and that the essence of his being goes into that person. So does that mean that the child would hold two different souls, or he's one of the now deceased and the soul of someone else? What is your concept of that? Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Deanne on the birthday show, and I just want to announce tomorrow's show. We're having a former U.S. Olympic skater, one of the powerful skaters of the 90s, and he's going to be on this program talking about his new entrepreneurship, which is dealing with fine arts, pennies from heaven, he calls it. He takes rare jewels, emeralds, and he also
mine.
with them and
Did I get my edge control brush? I thought I did.
High-end art, and he's opening this door for others, other levels of the art community to get involved in internationally and nationally. So I'm going to have my special guest tomorrow. He's going to be talking about his life, his career as a high speaker, and then we're also going to talk more about his new career in the fine arts. And I have my special guest on right now. He is a person and has researched the transition of souls, the astral planes, let's say, other levels of realities, and where we exist. And that's 7 Bomar. And 7, can you give the website information here for our listeners as we go further in this?
Sure. If anyone wants to reach us, they can reach us at astralquest.com. And all of our forums that you can participate in different avenues of receiving the information is on there.
So before the break, I was asking you about the situation of souls. Now, is a situation that, like in the thought process of what happens when a lama dies, or within some of the other religions, that a soul can be moved into another human host, and two souls preoccupy that body. What is your opinion?
That's correct. Well, that term is a sequential, and what a sequential is a being that is already aware of the incarnation process, and it's actually become what we just call a professional reincarnator. And what this is about is that obviously there is a passing, especially in any of the cultures, the ancient cultures, a passing of the ka or the ba of the elder soul or the jinn tree. And this is, of course, if you look at the word jinn tree, you get jinn meaning a spirit tree, and you get it there, just if you want to make it very simple, but the closest spirit to the origin of the tree. And so you have to realize that everyone has continuously branched out from some point. And so the closer ones that are to that point are supposed to have a deeper connection with the origin point. So this passing of the ka, the ba, which gives us the word kaba, is what a sequential is involved in, because once they leave the plane, first of all, they're already professional reincarnators, so they already know how to travel on the spiritual plane. Generally, you can't always say that the vessel that they're inhabiting next belong to another spirit, because the spirit is what animates the vessel. So a master would go into a womb and inseminate and then come out as that child, and then once getting to the age of knowing, the point of recollection, then they would animate that child, and then the child will be able to choose things that the master had before to authenticate that this process had completed itself. And so this is what you're dealing with. This is professional reincarnation. And now there is another phenomenon, though. I won't omit that there are spirits that can inhabit another vessel, several spirits that can inhabit a vessel at the same time. And this generally is called possession. But we need to understand what the difference between a spirit and a soul is, because a spirit does actually denote a specific kind of being, while a soul, being used in the plural, souls, is not correct. There is no plural in soul. Soul means one. That's it. There's no plural. So what a spirit is a disincarnate being, meaning a being that does not have a body, that still hasn't come into the realization that all is self, or that there is a connectivity of everything collected, and that's on the other side of the sun. So this being wanders around in one of the more ethereal vehicles in this identity known as, for most people, a spirit, but there was a whole classification of different kind of beings that reside on the astral plane. And this, of course, comes in modern texts as dukes and hags and these different kinds of astral energies, but the only thing they really are human beings that have left the planet multiple times, still staying in the cycle, and now they're just not on one of the physical planes or 3D planes anymore.
Well, I wanted to ask you now, there's a situation like in Africa, Western Africa. They have a naming ceremony. A lot of people don't know anything about it, but I have to. What it is that a child, when the child is born, they're christened, but in a different way. And what happens is that they do a naming ceremony, and it's basically bringing forth the souls of the dead relatives and ancestors into the host of the baby, hosting in the baby. And they use, I think it's 7 vials of different things, spices and various other incense and things. And they do, some type of ritual. And is that a situation that they are bringing spirits in, or is it an incarnate soul? Or what is your opinion of it? Are you familiar with that ceremony?
Yeah, well, what's happening is that, first of all, within every name, there's an evocation, because words do mean things, and they're very powerful words. So, of course, many of the indigenous languages And the ancient languages seem funny to speak right now because they pull from the lower area and up, which it takes to actually bring something into a three-dimensional reality. It has to be strong enough. So you have to vibrate first from the lower chakras and then bring it all the way up. So these languages sound quite strange to most people. But if someone is past that kind of name, surely by their name alone, they're already connected to the quote-unquote spirit. But if we're talking about entreating invocation, which is basically when there's certain things burned because of this memory. As I said, you see beings on the astral plane just in cycles. They gravitate to things they've been doing or places that they've loved to frequent. So smells, like if there was a village and it was raised with this copal smell or this acacia smell, and that was the most popular incense, just like back in the days we have incense in the house, etc. So this smell entreats them. It calls them from this other dimension in a language in which they can recognize, because the nose is one of the more primordial senses. It's nose, right? K-N-O-W-S. And so the nose has a sense that stretches really across time, and that's why most animals can sense you, not necessarily smell you, but sense you thousands of miles away. So, this is, again, taking apart the mysteries and then saying it just as it really is. So there is a lot of entreating of different energies, especially within, everywhere. People just need to realize what it is. There's older systems, more ancient systems that seem primitive, seem hocus pocus. And then there's more newer systems, like you come out with your name as John, and you get, the Masons playing around with your name, and then you capitalizing your name or putting you in a case. And you bring this case in. Now you're in a coffin. They have their courthouses docked on land, and all these different levels of what they have developed from a plagiarization of the original matriarchal system that was first inhabiting the planet that we're on, called Earth.
Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up too is the other level of this. Now, if you look into the Catholic Church, Roman Catholic, they believe in a place called purgatory. So your soul is supposed to, once you are deceased, enter into the area of purgatory until it's, reclaimed by God himself. What is your opinion of that? What is that? Does that exist?
Again, what purgatory is, because none of these places are specific places. It doesn't exist like we think of, we're going to go to this place. It's actually inner space. So you would implode to it. So what happens is in purgatory is a place that when a person is disincarnate from the body, meaning they cannot get into a carn reality, a flesh reality, then they reside in this space that they're in confusion or ignorance, called purgatory, which is basically like a limbo. And in this space, it's like a bridge there. You see a lot of different things. There's a great going and coming. They used to call this Midgard. It was the space, what we're calling fourth dimension now. It's like an elevator between dimensions. So this is what purgatory is. So what they're saying really is that if you don't gain some level of spiritual consciousness, in a real level of spiritual consciousness, you will be in this floating space, which is the cosmos of Earth, called stasis.
Hello.
This is held in time.
Thank you so much for liking the live. Don't mind me, I'm just working on my hair. Just got started. It's going to take a little bit of time. Listening to Astral Quest, by the way. Really, really old videos of Seven Bomar and his lectures.
Well, where's Earth in the universe? Where's the universe? So most people think all this stuff is outside. It's inside.
Feel free to chat with me and keep me company.
There's not too many of these because of that.
Yeah, I'm just doing my hair. Washed it, got a retwist, got to style it. Realized I bought the wrong kind of gel. Look at it. That's not what I usually use.
Because they're diametrically opposed, positive and negative, come together and then birth.
I can't even open this one because my
And
hands
that
are
verse
greasy.
has everything to do with water.
This is
right?
what I usually
And
use.
water, and so
It's
this
a
is
lot
really an ocean. Like what we're in
jellier.
right now is an ocean. We're in
So
a
I'm kind of
bubble
upset. I
that
got the
has
wrong
water.
stuff
There's no
for my
water in
hair,
space.
but
The space is evaporated.
I've used
So this
something
means that where
sort
we're
of
in
like
is
this
that everyone
before, and
that claims that they know, but
it's
we're
kind
in
of
a
the reason
womb.
why I
So
switched
what
to
happens is that
something
this
else.
water,
So I'm
because we
hoping
can't
that it
see it
still does me
around us,
okay.
if we put a dehumidifier
It's
in
not
a room,
as
you'll
thick
see
as
it
the
thin. It's just
old
not as thick as
wax gel
ocean
that I used
water.
to get, but
What I'm telling
it's
people
not
is
the right
that this
shit.
puts us on a high in a sense, because there's a conductivity
Definitely not the
that
right
we all of us share because
stuff.
of this water, right? And because of this.
Well, I want to bring that point in, but there's something also I want to bring in too, because see, what we're doing is we're trying to put a frame around a concept of something that many people that are of various religions don't want to really touch upon and talk about.
But my hair's getting so
The entrance of
long.
the soul and how it is, and the possibilities, because we have been taught certain things all our lives. And outside the realm, and we might be in the realm of dealing with our God, our God system.
But coincidentally, my very back locks at the very bottom are kind of one of the shorter ones.
For instance,
I've been through a lot.
And I mentioned the Catholic Church for a reason. And then I wanted to mention, some people say in the Christian Bible that you die, and then once you die, there's no rebirth. There is a time that you just wait until judgment is rendered. What is your idea and opinion of that? And then I'm going to go back into what you were talking about before, about the world being in a bubble of an ocean. What do you think about this situation that once you die, all the souls, wait and sit until he comes back and judges everyone?
Okay, well, first of all, we need to get a really quick concept of what's going on in the Bible, because the Bible itself is a hodgepodge or a buffet of several different works. And so obviously one of those works includes a lot of the Brahmic works, because you have Abraham, who's a Brahmin, and his wife Saraswati in the Hindu culture. And this is a book 20,000 years old before the Bible was even thought of. Before they even say the Bible is 10,000 years old before the point of creation. So this supersedes all of that. Matriarchal clan 60,000 years ago. So what we're dealing with the Bible and these hodgepodge stories is you're dealing with the Germanic god Gud, meaning that God is a specific term, and people need to realize this very briefly, that words are power, mantras are power. So if there is a ruler and he wants to give his mantra so that those who evoke in their highest state to call on the highest one should have to have the right name, because that's the energy game that they're playing. And that's why in every culture they have a different word. They're not using the word God. So who is God? God is Gud. And Gud is a Germanic god of the underworld. So the management of the Bible is a lot of duality. There's a lot of confusion going on. God says he's not the author of confusion, but then actually says, let me go down and confuse them. God uses language to confuse. This is a big thing. This is Gideon written in every single different language, this book of confusion.
Jeez.
So all
right, that's just row number one, you guys.
Research that needs to go on with if something's supposed to be so close to us and able to assist us.
That's just row one. You guys want to see it?
To the youth.
How does it look?
If it's a
Let me
father,
know.
you cannot be a father if you're not really
Does it
there
look
for your
good?
children. So these are what happens with this
Can't
book,
see
and
the
this is
parts
biggest
or
level of
anything.
mind control, is when you accept certain things that don't make sense. Curses anyone who hangeth upon a tree. New Testament comes, the Son is hung on the tree. There's several different contradictions if you just study the book. There is even another book that's written that tells you all the contradictions. But what happens with this, though, is if the mind begins to accept contradictions, it lowers its shield. It loses energy. It literally becomes drained of energy because the power is being given up. Because when most people ask, where is God? He's in the sky. And the other thing is that he. So, we have different dynamics going on with the book. So there's nothing really to authenticate in that work as being nothing more than mind foolishness. And I almost said a cuss word there, but that's what you're dealing with. But at the deepest level, because what the Jesuits have done is the Jesuits have books. There's 5, everyone knows Vatican Library is 5 miles, but then what is in there? There are books that need to be chained down in there. There are books that were written during the times when they were going through these different cultures and taking the trees, taking the totems, taking the fetishes, but mainly the words, the tones, the vibrations, because they wanted to monopolize those tones and vibrations. So it's very easy because each tribe then of the world has a specialty, has a power.
Well, we're going to break again, and we're going to talk about the Sophia Pistis. We're going to go to, but I want to continue on the thread that he's talking about now. We'll be right back after this station. Welcome back, everyone. It's Deanne here in the Deanne Burley Show. And by the way, we're going to have my friend that's in Hollywood, U.S. Olympic ice skater, on, and he's going to be talking about his career. His name is Shepard Clark.
This is the next set.
Performed in the 1993, 1998 Olympics in powerful
the
theater.
bottom,
If you go
going
to
from
the
the
website,
bottom.
you'll see, and you'll see.
And I kind of just like feel around until I feel like I got
today.
like a general parted like row, like a new row.
Show with Judge Mary Elizabeth Bullock, and then we also have the Modern Day Shaman coming on Wednesday program. So gear up. We have a lot of good programs coming on, not only this week but all future shows. And we're today with my special guest, Seven Bolmar. And we're talking about something that no one really talks about, the situation of souls and out-of-body experiences and things. And one thing I want to ask you, too, there was a question, I know my co-host wants to ask you something, but I want to get to one other point real quick and bring him on. But when a person dies or has an out-of-body experience, is there a difference in the weight of the body itself when the spirit leaves the body?
Oh, for sure. I mean, some can actually lose their life by leaving the body. There's a lot of, in this, when you really study deeper levels of spirituality, especially going to the East, there was, a lot of deeper writings about you can't generally leave your body without having a spirit that is so large that you can afford to keep some spirit in your body, because when the spirit leaves the body, it gets cold and it doesn't have, it's missing basically its emanation. And so, yes, you can be very affected by leaving the body. There are different things that can happen, but generally everyone has an oversoul. I mean, not generally, everyone has an oversoul. So that's really oversoul kind of business, for lack of terms, meaning the oversoul are handling, when a person's getting out of the body and what happens to their body and that kind of thing. But you become more aware of that early as you begin meditation, as you begin using the breath as power, as an actual boost to the way to boost the system and to put fuel into the blood.
So how about the ancient Egyptians? They believed that in the afterlife, once they had passed on, that their soul or entity would end up somewhere else in another body, and then if they ever came to where they were buried in Egypt and recognized themselves, then they would receive the wealth of that pharaoh or the queen. What is your opinion of that theory?
Well, I think the recognizing of yourself is something that happens internally, and I think that the wealth of the queen is obviously knowledge. So I think that the symbolism of the Kemetan, I guess let's use the correct term, Egypt, that term as Egypt, was a place of slavery. So in that sense, then anyone entering that place was going through hardships and trouble. Through those hardships and trouble, there may be a metamorphosis that
How are you? Hopefully you're doing better than me, because I just got started on my hair.
And then they change their life and they emancipate themselves.
We're not going to talk about the fact that I just started, okay?
Very correct. But when you're
at least we're on the second row. Just washed my hair.
Laying down foundations and then going other
doing a little retwist.
It's about total survival of the genetic species and the vast level of the species, because it's not just humans, it's not just
we're almost at 100% right now, Nails done, toes done, hair needs done.
Other organisms that are here as you begin to witness the
It's that time of the month where we just Get everything together.
Osmium,
Alright.
These are different elements that you can't see with the physical eye, right? So anyone that was very spiritual could see these elements. Now people need telescopes and things to see them, but the ancients had already isolated these elements from the other side, meaning that we're trying to discover them. They weren't in the level of discovery. They knew everything. There's only one thing to know, and that's just all itself. And then everything collapses upon itself, and you become an omniscient. This is what is attempted to be achieved by every bodhisattva or every evangel, every great being that comes into full awakening.
Look at all that Negro.
The vow is to help ascend all species, because from that point, you know that if you take that vow, that eventually you will get yourself completely whole again. Because after the Big Bang, that's division, that's fractalization, that's five, that's fighting, that's fire, that's conflict. All these words are synonymous, and it wears us down. So we get tired, we get sleepy, we divide, we die. So these words only mean to keep splitting. This is mitosis. We have children. Our children are weaker than us because we're not strengthening their DNA or their ladder or their spine so that they can stand erect. So there's a riddle also here, meaning that there is a way with the words. The words do mean something. First of all, with English, the words are backwards. So this automatically changes the direction of anyone's mind who's thinking in it. And notice we think in the language versus we have to consider that then as software. Because if I say in my mind, let me go to the store in English, I'm loading that into the Holy of Holies. So that's why the ancients, they thought in the tone and vibration of what they wanted to do, and this allowed them to be very successful. This, what we're in now is a microcosmic version, and I wanted to clear out some things here because it's very important for everyone. I feel like what I need to deliver tonight is this ancient issue going on between man and woman, aka 5 and 6, who constantly oscillate, meaning that man constantly becomes woman, woman constantly becomes man. If we didn't notice, a person has a masculine or a positive and a negative inside of every body. But the interesting thing here is that it is the source of one of the greatest levels of conflict, which is basically what came first, the chicken or the egg. Because woman does believe that she is the generator in this planetary system, and that man is basically here because she's allowed him to be. While everything shows you that man has a female semen that comes out and goes into the egg, and the semen is what determines whether it's a female. So there's a metaphor here in the beginning of this crazy book about Eve being removed from Adam. That's not what it says in Hebrew. What it says is that Hawa was removed from Cadman, meaning that Cadman is an androgynon. It's a male-female. It's self-generating, called parthogenic. Okay? And then when you split that, meaning you put the male on one side and you split the male from the female, and then now you have them two out in 3D, they will go into conflict with each other, but that is because that's why man becomes in man. He doesn't become Cad man. Now the word Cad means a design or a creation or a creator. So what a Cad is a womb, right? They even play around with it. Oh, let's go into AutoCAD. What do you do in AutoCAD? You create. It is a womb inside of there, but it's digital. So the CAD being removed from man makes man juxtaposed to woman. So this is basically 5 versus 6. So fire versus sex. You know, they're so close together, these two translations, right? And so this is the dualistic taking place that happens on these kind of dimensions that makes it God or God's chariot. Okay?
Well, I will agree with the part that I had seen in the ancient relics of the back-to-back God, which wasn't God, but creation of what was Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were one, and they were split in half. That's according to a lot of the ancient relics that were left around in the cultures of Samaria and Mesopotamia.
Right.
And they have, if you go to the Oriental Institute in Chicago, you'll see it looks like a very large woman, and then it's a back-to-back entity with a nose on both sides, a face on both sides, but it represents man and woman as one, which was split, like you said, in half. The other thing, too, with the second creation, is that it seems as though there was another being here on the planet a woman named Lilith that was not connected at all with the Adam and Eve creation, and was put to Adam but refused, and that was in writing in these old texts further back in the Bible. In fact, the ancient Bible even speaks of Lilith. But I wanted to bring in content here, and I guess we have to have you back on the show again because there's a lot more here. I want John to ask you some questions as well about the Soviets. And from what I read eons ago, there was nothing in the what we call first. It was called Nirvana. It was just total emptiness. But then there was a source of this like liquid essence that was there, which was called the Sophia, and no, the pistis. And the Sophia was probably the course of the fluid hitting light, some type of light frequency that brought everything electrically into being. You know, these are concepts, folks, that people much older than us, that are not even here anymore, and entities that we don't even know anything about, evidently knew what was going on more clearly than we know today, because a lot of this stuff is hidden from us. Because if we have any information in this, then we can control our own destiny. Because a lot of this stuff is produced off of sound frequency. The beginning it was the uttering of the word, and the word was with God. And the word was just something you uttered. It was a sound you would utter, which was a frequency. So you could make clouds, you can make trees, you can make anything just uttering a sound. Just like you're on a computer and you type up coding on a computer, if you go into binary code, look at what the computer shows now. What you see is remnants of somebody programming from a dot off of a system. There's binary code that brings things into color, into light, into trees and things are created. That's not a mere task. So if you think on that concept, the same concept begins in the beginning of what we look at as mankind. Now, do you agree with that thought process at all?
Wholeheartedly. I mean, well, very well said. I can only chime in that for sure. I mean, also people need to realize that this particular reality we're calling Earth has spanned out for billions of years, and that means that many entities have come across this planet, and many entities are still confined to the planet. They're chained down to the planet, meaning they can't actually ascend because they can't get out of the vacuum, and so they become such as the Lilith archetype vacuum, and then also the relationship as you find out that Lilith is obviously the wife of Samael, who's a warlike character of Mars. And then even the Zulu story and the connection to Mars and the war on Mars and the warlike character between two opposite sides of the prism or two different color spectrums consistently creating in the energy. And that's why think about the wording. As you know the codes to the words, it starts to unlock a different kind of way, which the Kabbalist really knows. Now, when you mention the term, since God has been around since the beginning of time, this means because God created time. So the father of time is actually Saturn. So if you go in the Eastern tradition, it's Sat. Sat Sun, Sat Nam, Sat is truth, meaning that they were turned on to the base pillar of spirituality before everyone else was. So as we move on from there, we find that this creation of time is what is actually wearing us down. This is the programming in itself. And that's why it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Gud. Okay, this means that...
If I can interrupt you 1 second, we're about to end the program, but I can continue on Blog Talk. And, but I didn't know if you could continue with us, Beth, or...
Yeah, let's continue. I know there's about 30 more minutes if you do that on Blog Talk, so yeah, let's
okay, so everybody listening, Cook Radio is going to drop off here in about 2 seconds, and we'll continue on Blog Talk. So anyhow, where everybody wants to continue with the program.
Okay, so, well, I could just finish this plan for this.
We're at the end of Truth Radio, and we're going back on Blog Talk, and we're on actually more than 30 minutes, but it's okay. It depends on how long you can stay on. But the thing is that I know, again, that we're talking about something that is purely a dangerous subject to many because, again, it defines the belief system that we know about. We talk about the Bible. We don't talk about how those books came out. We talk about the Library of Alexandria. It had a lot of this information in it. The information that we're talking about was in ancient Egypt, written in the hieroglyphics. In fact, people claim that they can read hieroglyphics, but only some. Some people can look exactly a hieroglyphic drawing, and some of them can look at the ancient drawings of Aztecs and Mayans, and they can tell exactly for word or drawing by drawing exactly what is being perpetrated. But others cannot understand the symbolism of what was being given at this time. Now, I want to ask you, now this is like we're defying what people would say in concept of Bible, what they feel the truth is. What do you have to say to those people? And then I'll let John ask you some questions here.
Well, first of all, I believe that this is time for us to get out of what people think, because you're never going to find that occurring in the reality where everyone is perceiving things the same way that you're perceiving things. In fact, that would make the purpose of the reality void. What happens is because the word did not come that void, as you see the statement says, that means that what happens with some people is that they're still in the cocoon. They're still on various levels of sleep. If you want to awake them, you're going to need to vibrate them. And so you need to understand principles of vibration. And that's the only way. Like talking is not worth anything. That's why it's cheap. English is you have half of the language, so it doesn't manifest as a creation in people's minds. So
listening to ancient wisdom and spirituality talks with Seven Bomar. He's on somebody else's radio show. This is from like 10 years ago. He was on somebody's radio show, and people would just have him on their podcasts and things, and we'll just let him talk because he's just like a huge wealth of knowledge.
Your land is gone. All these kind of things. The will, W-H-E-E-L.
Pretty much spent his entire life studying
when the will is broke, the only thing that
these different ancient texts
is someone who knows how to work with chakras, because chakras are
occult.
And so that's
knowledge,
what I'm talking about. Like, this isn't very integral work. This isn't fringe. Like, people are not sitting down talking about this all day. The most they get to it is they pull some of these wild books out, and then they start drawing circles on the ground and then staying in cycles like they've always been. This is taking in totally different kind of individuals these days, ones that have been through all of this stuff and then still have risen with clear minds to really come in with another level of this expansion. It doesn't involve systems and languages and things at all. It requires energy and a direct connection to a pure source, because that's what we are. That's what we do. Until we see that again, we'll never see ourselves. So that's also why I'm very adamant about bringing this forth. And again, just to close out what I was explaining about the word is with group, is that we need to understand that this word is specific. Now, I'm not going to give anyone the word, but I will tell you the word makes a cone. And what this is like, if you understand when you get into a stage with your third eye and your chakras on and you say certain words, geometry appears in front of you. And then from that point, you shade the geometry with more words. So that's why words they're sculpts. They sculpt. And they sculpt geometry that is breathed from your mouth. That's why we have the breath of life. We can breathe life into an existence, but that existence is this geometry, right? So what happens is that in the beginning was the word, and then when the word fell into the hands of good, this is like an old cartoon where they say, never let this fall into the hands of evil. Now, again, I don't want to do the good and evil thing here, but we're living in a world where there are individuals in possession of the word that was the covenant. And this was the agreement between what we're knowing as Sheba, Solomon, and Menelik, and who is MLK. Not just Martin Luther King, but Moloch, the king, the horn god. Like in the country of Abyssinia, the cattle is the form of current or energy or currency. So, we need to kind of dig into our books a little bit and connect it all together, I have it all connected in my soul. And so that's what lets me know what's going on, because I can watch the entire process. I can be the bug on the wall, for lack of terms, in other realities of when this is all taking place in time, so that we can get our stories together. Because still, the reality is that we'll see the results of what we believe right in this reality, so that when you get a hold of truth, you'll see the whole path. So I can take questions now, because I know I wanted to make sure I got a chance to answer the questions of the co-host.
2 rows down.
John, if you want to ask some questions here, are you still here, John?
Yeah, I'm here. I just got a couple safety things first for people. Number one, you've got a universal law that you're supposed to ask permission before you enter anybody. And you're not supposed to say have someone hypnotize you, because that joins you forever. Once they know your combination to get into your mind and you allow them in there, you're connected forever. And that's a very dangerous thing. You don't know who they're connected to in that multi-stages. So just something that I know that is in existence, and be careful of.
3, 4,
I'm
5,
off for a couple of days here, to be honest with you.
7,
Let me hit a couple of high
8,
points.
9,
One would be, and don't answer this to begin with, my first question, I guess, is we see the statues on Easter Island are the same figures that are in the
14.
buried city that are just uncovering, that's much older than anything we know of in Turkey.
Alright, so we got 14 locks
Same shape as the same statues that we're
ready
seeing
to
in,
be
Machu Picchu.
twisted into
And
2
if you look at
strand
the
twists.
shape of the
So
mountain
now I just
of
take them in
Machu Picchu, it's
2s.
the same face shape made into the mountain. And so you have a creation of beings that were standing with their hands down around their groin, with the big heads that are around Easter Island, and that
Twist
is
them up.
perimeter around the world. All right, the other thing I want to bring about is my understanding, and I've been out of my body 3-4 times. I've been told and impressed on my life to do everything every day to help everybody, and I've seen heaven, I've seen hell. I've been taught that hell is a growing point of negativity. If you don't do it, you'll be on the outside looking in and not be able to do anything. You're full witch and not being given permission to do anything because you violated. You did not grow. You destroyed. And I've also been able to know that if I practice good virtue, I can get to my third eye in a meditation or prayer. And then all of a sudden I can open my eyes and look right at the sun. And if it's cold outside, I'm warm. If it's warm outside, I'm cool. I'm at perfect ambient temperature. And all of a sudden, I can watch the sun be danced around as a hydrogen fuel cell and be given a Rolodex of phenomenal information just starts rolling into me. And as you can see, a 2-year-old a lot of times will be looking at the sun. You go, Johnny, don't look at the sun because it'll hurt your eyes. Doctors tell you it'll blind you. And yet Johnny looks at you and his eyes aren't watering. They aren't like they're really spiked. Because his heart isn't been contaminated, he's able to look at the sun. He's able to have some things. But he isn't growing up. I understand about 28, 30 years old is when the core of our brain starts advancing enough to where we can start seeing the information process and that kind of thing. What I was given is I was head under a 10-ton bulldozer, fell 10 feet, blew my head up like a balloon, had so much pressure on me. I was about 8, 9 inches or 7, 8 inches bigger in diameter than it normally would have been. That's how severe it was. I shouldn't be here. The Lord gave me the ability to find truth and to see truth, and I was able to see my entire Akashic record of every breath I ever took in an instant and understand. I was intelligent enough to understand it in an instant. And so anyhow, I've met a person, and I'm going to say synchronicity or whatever, they talk about the brother and the Holy Ghost, that there was, when the Lord makes a culture, and in the Bible it says he made many cultures, and we're not the sheep of the other cultures. But they make 40 billion souls, and the soul will never die. And of those souls, there's the biggest portion split into 2, one being female, one is male. And there's some souls that can be male or female, depending on what they want to be in their existence, in the reincarnation, basically. I don't know if you've heard anything about that, but that we've exceeded our time limit of growth. We were supposed to advance ourselves and we didn't, and so we're way behind the mark of growth in our humanity, and we've been given 17,000 more years to try to develop us to proper growth so that we can advance ourselves. And there's several masters that have gone above, but then there's a lot of us that haven't made it, as the Bible talks about, those that are will be brought to light in some will run to or fro and
Alright.
not make
First retwist barrel.
And if you have points of
Jesus
growth, you're given
Christ.
abilities, and if you're not, you won't. And so you'll have to relive some of the things on the lower planes. But anyhow, that kind of.
I want to ask something on that. Do you believe that people have to, in some of the ancient religions, they say that you come back on the lower plane as a different species or animal to grow past the
Okay, I was actually hearing two things at the same. I was actually hearing two people at the same time. I didn't catch the end part of what you said, Ms. Carla. And I am going to get those questions.
Okay, well, I just wanted to ask you, the thing is, you have a situation where people feel in some religious cultures that if they, they're reincarnated in a
Trying to get the Locs about the same length
they were not able
at the bottom.
get
I like
right,
start
left,
at the bottom, obviously, and then the lower ones are going to be the longest ones, and then as I go up, I'm going to make them slightly shorter, so it's kind of like a bob situation. Hi, Gemini.
The only thing I really have to say is that there is a lot of monuments and pyramids and different statues that are even underwater, as many people have seen now. There's even a new body of water coming out of the ocean now. So
and then I wrap them back up in a barrel. They call it a barrel.
Have been vast and bear different features. And
where you're like literally, you see this? I'm like literally wrapping the lock back up the 2-strand twist.
That's the only real teacher. And so just to really address what the gentleman was saying about the sun, and it's very correct that the sun is actually, sun is everything as far as its transmission. And it's interesting because when there's a connection, we just call it a straight pipe. This is when you're actually flying towards the sun rather than just receiving the rays from the sun. Then as you're going, you're purified because the sun's going to melt off all the toxins. I'm just explaining this in more of a metaphor. And then as you get closer, if you have no fear, then there is no fire, meaning it's actually not hot. And the riddle of this also was within the Sphinx, because when on the astral plane, if you go to the Sphinx, you do see a very large lion, really basically a composite being of a lion and many other fiery creatures. But if it's, and there's supposedly a library beyond that. But if you show fear, then you cannot get beyond that point. And so I think that these kind of stories were given to let us understand that if you notice that, let's say, for instance, you're flying towards the sun. As you get closer, the stars that you see in the distance actually start to blur because they get brighter and brighter and brighter. So eventually, it's all collected. So this is also why it's important for us to see that it's common sense. It's not spirituality, mathematics, science, etc., to let us know that there is an origin point. Because if I go back to your grandfather and you're his grandfather and his grandfather, and I keep going back, I'm going to get to less people until I eventually get to some type of composite being. And suppose this happens with all species. So that's what I'm talking about. That at the point where all the species are coalesced together, still inside of one womb, that's the origin. What we've done now on the timeline, and this is what will always keep you below time, is segregation. Any kind of separating. You need compassion. That's what all the masters in every religion at least attempt to teach. So that means that that's something that we must do. And compassion means not differentiating, not setting any walls or laws between one and another that all come forth to receive. So we need to understand what all really is. Okay? Because the sun, just as it's bright, is also blinding to some individuals. So it's in degrees. We learn discernment. This means to learn your field, learn how much you can take of it and how much you can't. But generally, we're hardwired to say, okay, I can't read that, I can't believe that. And that's the limit of what we can take. But we can't make that also the next person's limitation. And then one of the other things here is about the code. That when you're in these higher states of consciousness, many have experienced this on what we call Dimitri or DMT, but when the third eye is open, you see a code running through everyone. It is a different kind of language. There has not been no extraction of that language, but it is there. So this means that there is something running through the framework of this reality that is a tone and vibration that it looks very similar to what the Aztecs, they call it Aztechnology, or the Mayans were using. And I'm just yet to finish my research of this phenomenon of this code running through people is only exclusive to this country of Costa Rica. And then finally, to answer the question about the lower plane reincarnations. Now, remember, we're still in this conflict with principalities, rulers, and dominions. Okay? So let's not act like that they're not here. It's just, it'll be amazing to many people when they figure out the true identity of those principalities. Okay? So the lower plane reincarnations occur when a soul, or then a spirit, we need to work on differentiating these words, but a spirit is degraded. And degradation comes when you break your moral bearing too much. So there is a natural moral bearing within every individual that says, I shouldn't do this and I should do this. That is the only Lord. The Lord is in the mind, it's set up in the temple. But understand, lords are also conflictive. This is why there's Cain, and then there's Abel. Now, if you understand this deeply, you're talking to someone who's read the Bible 3 times. You're talking to someone who can convert someone to Christianity within 5 minutes. I went far. I obtained the Holy Ghost. This is the issue with most Christians, is that they are not obtaining the real levels of power that are incorporated within their belief system. They're sitting on a pew. Imagine that this didn't have anything to do with your connection with all there really is. And to entreat something like that, it starts to become obvious. If you just call a little bit and you don't get a response, all that's going to happen is you're going to get into a situation eventually where you're going to have to call. So why not call now? Like, if you're going to make a long trip, everyone here, last time I checked, will die. So if you're going to make a long trip to wherever this new place is going to be, you better call first. Because notice how in this world, if you go somewhere very far, you call first. Hey, you guys, you got some space for me? Yeah. So what's happening is that we are severed from our true connection of spirituality by religion. Because if you remember the book says, well, what are the
religion is crazy.
What are the bad ones?
Whoa.
Okay, when the demon was cast out, the demon was told to give his name. What did he say his name was? Legion. So these legions of Romans, which is what you see going on, all this book is a metaphor. If you're exoterically looking at it, and this is how we grow through the depths of knowledge. I was able to take this work deeper because my mind went deeper. And then you start seeing the hidden mysteries. You start seeing, look, this is a book that unlocks, and it's saying something. And when it's done with you, it will tell you, and you will be introduced to the real supreme being, you. Because there could be none of this if you weren't thinking about it. When I remove you from thought, you won't know your name. You won't know who you were born with. You won't know any of this data. That's clear. So what happens is that the duality.
I have to stop you here for a minute. We have a caller on line 4 from 916 area code. Caller, do you have a question of 7? Caller on 916, are you there? I'm listening, thank you. Oh, you don't have a question? No. Okay. Anyone else wanting to call in? The number is 718-508-9513, 718-508-9513. 7, go ahead. I'm sorry, I just saw we had a caller.
That's okay. We do want to make sure we get to every caller. But what I'm saying is that it is a step on the ladder. If you want to call it Jacob's ladder, Jacob is Jack, is James, is Diego, is Iago. But you have to know these words, these riddles. And then the ladder is all of these different stages of spirituality, because there's more open source spirituality. Buddhism is more open source than Christianity. Christianity is a redoing of the ancient tradition to modernize it. That's why it's called a New Testament. It places man as the God, right? Because it's man on the cross. He's the main character in the New Testament. But unfortunately, if man is not living up to his true power, which is as a God, but in this case, a supreme being, okay? So if a man is not living up to his true power as a supreme being, then we have an issue on our planet, because then every time something goes on, like the multiple levels of abuse happening on this planet, we say someone in the sky is supposed to solve it. And we've been thousands of years. Like, if you go back deep enough, you'll figure out that the joke is on humanity, probably because for thousands of years we've been told the same story, that we are not the gods, but even math tells you you are. But you came from them. So if we accept then a king, now I'll take you into the book. Remember, for the children of Israel, meaning the 12 tribes of earth, they were told by, notice there's two gods also. If you're reading the Old Testament very closely, you'll notice there's two gods in there. But the reality is that they were told not to take a king by the good God, okay? And the people said, no, we want a king. So they took upon themselves who? Saul. Now, Saul is actually the Latin word for salt. Salt is also the word is a cube. Salt is Saturn. So this means that when we were free, it was because we didn't have anything that was lowered or the Lord over the top of us. It's like, do you know that's the part of being an adept or an adult? Is that you don't have to be told you should not steal, you should not kill, you should know not to do that anyway. That's your moral bearing. That's something that's hard coded. If you need to be continuously reminded of that, that means someone has set up a reality where that is okay to do. So we need to be very clear that this reality, what has been set up by God, is under the dominion of God in his alternate character. At least he admits that he is also created the devil. That is his antithesis or shadow side. So this whole behavior, though, is so immature for us. It becomes so difficult for us to even say that now. We are living in fear of even saying that possibly God's regime is not working for us. So what happens then in fear, anytime there's fear, there's a contraction. So this means if you may have one chakra working, but all the other ones may be closed. So this means you're only seeing things at a certain perspective. So when we open the chakra center, when we see things from all faces, then we collapse this prism or prison, these different colors, these different races, these different creeds, these different gods fighting each other, people fighting each other. All that collapses, and time ceases to exist. And then you get into what's already going on. And this is the last thing
I want to stop you here on this, because I want to ask you now, let's go into the thought process of UFOs and aliens. Now, there's multiple universes and planets and, let's say, entities that we have not seen and we think are here and might not be here. But under the idea of that, there's a situation that the soul is universal. The soul and spirit are universal. So it doesn't matter what planet, even though these entities may look different. So is the situation that there are aliens, or are the aliens actually akin to what we are, through the soul and spirit?
I think that you said it properly first with the idea of that. Like, we have to realize that as creators, we create. So when we have an idea of something and we give it a face, we give it a particular attitude, a character, an origin, then it can come into in existence in our minds as an idea. But when's the last time, beside in our minds, the place between heaven and earth, have we seen one of these creatures? You see what I mean? But I'm not saying that there's not other life forms that live here. I'm just saying that when's the last time they tried to talk and to speak to humanity? And so it's one of those things that
there has not been any that has really spoken to anyone, but it's the idea
on an external level. On an external level.
But the thing is, what the external level has created. See, we have created monsters. Everything, like you say, creation. Now, if you're a Zen Buddhist, you believe in creation through use of your mind. If you're a practitioner, a Nisha Daishona, you believe of creation by sound frequency. There's different, I'm talking about in regards to Buddha and the thought process of that. So you have people that are creating things in this reality, not even using the words per se, but they're creating it through mind.
Just working on my hair.
Thought
It's a long process.
So powerful way to create. Is that not true?
For sure. I mean, one of
Hoping
the
I
most
can be
powerful
done
things
by
that we can
10
create
o'clock
is
tonight.
with children. And thought comes in place
Hopefully.
with even that. So if we look in deeply into it, the ideas
Thank
that
you.
are formulated is given the strict term
It's getting
idolon
hot.
or an archon. And this is basically an idea. It's not actually living form, but it can become solid. It can become gaseous, and even to the point where it becomes solid when there's enough of us giving our energy into making it manifest. Because, and this is very simple for people. I don't want people to just see this as only something spiritual. We create children. When we have an idea, I'm going to build a house. You start building it, and I come back a year later, and there's a house there. So there's a magical thing if you just want to see that with humanity. And then all this
So
other
close,
stuff like
but
reptilians
so
and
far away.
demons and all these different things, not to think that they don't exist, but they are eidolons and archons because we have the power to accept their existence or not. So some people that are very trained in their mind know how to switch it off. I mean, they know that this is two planes you're living in. If you didn't think so, why do you go to sleep and then you go to another world?
Rain.
You're forced to go to another world every day, just as there's a night and day in the sky. So what happens is that if we accept, when we are in our spiritual stance, in our soul, this division of what our archon is, what James is, what Jesse is, whoever the name is, or whatever the mark, because these are all Mason marks, whatever the division chiseled away from the statue that we want to call it, we still need to be $1 a death enough to know we're dealing with 3D. Meaning that this has been here for billions of years, first of all. So if you're thinking it's going somewhere, I would look at yourself first. The next thing is that all these planets on this kind of system at some point get superheated. So if you're pissed off about the plastic and things like that, trust me, only the strongest people will survive the cycle that really comes for purification. And people may not see that for millions of years. You see what I mean? So while we're here, we have an opportunity, and that's what they say the Buddha found out. Buddha didn't say, come worship me and all that. He said, look, I'm going to tell you, don't trust the guys. They're evil. They've been down here for a while, and they built up multiple planes, and that their whole idea is they want slaves.
When was I asleep?
So,
I don't know.
but there's good news.
Couple
Everything
hours,
here
maybe?
that you need to ascend is actually on Earth. Earth provided it for you. It's in the trees. It's in
I was
nature.
just saying, I
It's in
definitely don't think it was
nature
5
for sure.
hours.
This means all of your medicines, all of what you're taking, what's making you sick, what you eat, all this stuff is coming from derivatives of nature. So that's where, again, our power is. Our power is in our power plant. It's in what we're standing on, where we're pulling our energy. So when we're so off in space on Nebula 5 dealing with Rizikians with 3 horns coming out of the head, we're missing out on what's happening to our children 5 to 10 years from now as the Rex Mundi and the Diaboli and the rest of the Jesuits run amok. Because the real supreme being is sitting back, passing the buck, trying, oh no, it's God. God's supposed to do it. Because we're scared. But that's what happens when you don't know true spirituality. Because remember, if you have any kind of fears, and you'll know that you have fears hard-coded because
First
if
2
something happens to you,
rows done, you guys. See?
this means you're still in a support system, believe it or not. We need to get
Can you see that?
Just alone, people will say from this whole broadcast that we had today that this is New Age thought. It's totally against what the tradition is. But then I ask you this. We have created within our own mind, as external, outside our body, one of the worst realities we are facing on this planet. We're close to maybe a World War III. I just read that China is signing in with Russia just about an hour ago with the situation going on in the Ukraine. I'm hearing financial collapses and everything, and then total work stoppage, which is another thing that is people creating work stoppages, again, through their mind and thought. Because, again, if you think it can be. So if you think there's no work, there will be no work. If somebody tells you and puts a thought in you, kind of like hypnotic thought, then whatever they say that can influence you will be. But when you become strong in yourself and your spirit and you understand that everything here, your essence, your being, and everything comes from within, and that is the creator. You find find out that you can create a positive world, and there won't be an end. So what do you think, what did you tell these people that will say, oh, we're talking New Age, we're defying religion, the services that we have been brought up on, there's no afterlife, there is no spiritual plane that we will exist on. We just die, and that is it, and we go to judgment. What would you say
where we left it at?
Those people that listen.
Bag right there.
Well, first I would say that the tradition, this is what I'm speaking of today, is the tradition. This is not, if it's New Age, it's because we forgot about it. And just as you said, what we're doing now is obviously not working. But the issue here is it should not be skipped. The issue is that there are people who believe that the reason this is not working is because of somebody, maybe the devil. And that if we were doing it the way of the religion, then we wouldn't be in this situation. And never understanding that nothing could be further from the truth. That is actually religion causing this problem. Because it is the point that we are the most serious. It is the highest thing that we can conceive. People need to realize that if you set your goals towards, and you read about this character who's jealous and who's vengeful and all this, and you set your goals for that, that's supposed to be the best you can do? Be jealous? Not take care of your people? Get mad at your people? This is what leads to that. So the reality is that religion is an integral part of this. And because I'm not under dominion, meaning that there is another level to this, like we have expansion, we are supreme. When you come into that, then you don't have these demigods scaring the hell out of you. These different entities in your mind giving you a sentence, basically, and giving you conviction. That is the best term, conviction. You better not do anything or else. The first commandment, you shall not have any more before me. I'm the only one. If there's no one other, then that means that we are lost. You see, the reality is that it's connectivity, but it's all one thing. People need to understand this. Forget all of what I said that may baffle you and be complex. Listen, if it's about division, turn the other way, and you will go in the right direction. Stay away from division, all forms of it. If somebody says, this one is the bad one, and this one is the good one, and you need to be on this side, you need to be focused on your expansion. You don't have time to be sitting around choosing and judging which one is which. That's what we get caught in, receiving too much, like receiving the doctor and receiving the information, and we're in the story, and we need to do something about our creation. And so this is what this is about. So I just tell people this, that you look inward and you'll find it. But understand that the word, again, universe, means uni, which means united, and verse, meaning in conflict. Okay? So the universe is united in conflict. How does that work? It's the body. When you eat something or drink some alcohol, you go to war with the liver. The upper world in war with the lower world. Then your root chakra is broke. Then you got hell going on. You can't burn up your toxins in your system, so all of your mind is diseased. So there's this deeper part of what it means to take care of the garden, which is your body. Because this was the animal in intent that was given and put in your charge. This was the lesser being. As spiritual beings, which we are, we were given these bodies to lead. You see what I mean? Like, this is a deeper thing. This is putting you inside of the baby rather than letting you take care of the baby outside. You see what I mean? So there's deeper integral work here. And I'll just say, if you graduate, instead of being like, I can't handle it, if you graduate, just think of the possibilities here. Because everything in nature shows you abundance, so this is a reward system. This is not a punishment system. This is not do this or else. This is do this and you shall expand. That's what the
just eat and start doing my hair.
In the end, we're coming to the end of the show right now, and I love to have your back. And we wrote the code, and we say, people, you need to get this so you can understand fully. He has a number of YouTube videos, so if you go to my website,
I'm not even halfway done yet.
There's a website.
I've only done 2 full rows.
To his site with a lot of information. But the thing is,
I got like 44 locks. So.
Satan, Seti.
It's really not a lot, but
What do you think
it just
about
takes a while
that?
because I can't
We
see
sat
everything
down
good.
playing of war and hatred
And my arms get
greed
tired.
and levels to people, even the ones that
And I feel like I'm
claim
getting
to be
old because
evil,
now it's
they
like
claim that they
sometimes
are working
when
against
I'm like retwisting my
the
hair,
anti-Christ
my
and
fingers
anti-God.
start
Is
cramping
this
up
such
and
thing
shit.
enmity, or is this something that they
Yeah.
are putting afoot to control
Getting
the masses
old.
and millions and keep the world enslaved? What is your opinion?
But my hair is like
I would say
touching the
both,
top of my butt,
because
so that's
the
cool.
Shane, who's Shaddai, who's
Yeah.
the real God of the Old Testament, is in fact wandering around, causing disruption, as always. And this is because the sun has a shadow, okay? Just like we have a shadow on the floor. And that is a collection of the energy. It's like a dark vacuum. And so this is you would need to understand how the worlds are laid out a little bit more deeper, but it basically is it's a shadow world. And so basically the emanation. So this is very briefly to explain it to people, a level or stages of consciousness that when you're pulled down, like a Lady Gaga concert and just getting involved in the whole rap industry and all that, when you're pulled down into a frequency of archon, meaning those who control the mind, a demon, meaning a D-man, being D-man, meaning no longer man, right? No longer flesh. So when you get pulled down onto those levels, which correspond to the netherworld, that's Inca Wat, that's what the work that was being done there, that is the foundation that these kind of worlds stand on now, then that's what you're dealing with. So in every tenth, there is a lower frequencies, distorted frequencies that are broadcasting now on our planet, some of which, as you mentioned, were never being broadcasted before. There is another rift in the frequency spectrum because there are tones in some of this very advanced trance music that's being used that stretches the cones in the corpuscles of the brain, opening up new dimensions of thought. And those new dimensions, when they're born, are often distorted. They're like deformed children. And so this is where, when you have the power of creation and then you don't know what to do with it, because we do need to remember, and I'll say this in closing, there's something integral going on here with the creation process. This is why it became the linchpin to the whole thing of why there was a falling away and all this. And it's because of a riddle that Adam and Eve did not know what they were doing when they created Cain. And they had no instructions of how to raise a child. Okay? So this also means now, if when you have all these parents that have no instructions on how to raise the child, then you make Cain. Okay? And then if Cain is Conan, King is Cohen, he's the priest. He's the priest king. That's the ruler of this world. Rex Mundi, he brought the world under his sway and under his control. So this is, and again, it's not a him as in far as a male, but it's a fire as in a masculine entity that burns and uses pain and fear. And this is what embodies the Jesuit as they evoke the confined one. So that's really, that's maybe far out for people, but give yourself some time, meaning time equals space, and you may get a little bit closer to what I'm talking about as far as whether it's authentic or not. But, this is something that you still need to focus on yourself.
It's very important that people are losing here, Kevin, is the fact that children are the most important, valuable thing on the planet. And like jewels, it's kind of like, we talk about Adam and Eve created by God. And we have created children.
Can you spread that out so I can see it? It looks like enough, but I just want to make sure before I stop.
They run us away because of the sound frequencies, the very things that other people are concentrating on in order to
Alright, give me
them.
just a second.
And then eventually what will happen, their entity, their soul, the soul will become a lesser form of the spirit. And then
I thought I was out of shells, but then I remembered I had bought 2 packs of shells a couple days ago, used one pack, lost the other pack, and then bought more, and then just was like, I'm sure I'll run into that other pack somewhere, some point, and I found it.
No longer be diminished. And that is for a whole nother show.
Stuck.
I just wanted to have you make a comment on that.
Well, lastly, the child is us. Like, we need
can't
to
tell
really
how
realize
it's
what's going
stuck
on. And I was
though.
saying in the beginning, but very briefly, that as the man's semen goes into the female and it's not any cooties with it, we need to realize that that's the first point of emanation. But the man can then dive back into the female. So there's two sides, two worlds, two directions on this road. But it still leaves one destination. The child is you. It's the coalescing of your biorhythm. So even if you don't have children, your biorhythm will be gathered up into the child. That's like that's in your family line. That's their inheritance because it's really you. So if we take care of our children, then we've taken care of ourselves. If we lose our children, we've lost ourselves. We see ourselves as separate. Like, that's my child, but that's not me. You haven't seen the astral plane. They're you. And what happens is if they don't get tuned in before you leave, then you can't communicate with them. And this is developed, the risk, the division symbol, the percentage symbol, the division sign itself means that you're disconnected. So when you don't know where your father is from,
Roll
when
this
you don't know
up.
where your mother and your
All
aunt,
this
once
product
they
going in.
that never settles. You never stop asking. You may make yourself forget, but you never stop asking. So in conclusion, this is about knocking down that wall, knocking down these walls. But someone has to come forth. So here I am, and there are many with me. Because this is a task, and that's why we're in action constantly.
Well, here, and I thank you very much, Devin, for coming on. And he is so called a cold, and he has a lot of YouTube videos there. And if you want to give your website again, to where they can contact you, and would you mind coming back on my friend?
Sure, I mean, not a problem, because I know we personally wanted to get into something even deeper, like we didn't even get into the gym and the origins of these different species, because they are here, but, in this show, it's just important for a person to focus on themselves. So, yeah, I would love to come back and to elaborate a little bit more on some very deeper esoteric laws, so they can be broke down.
Okay. And I'll give you a website again.
The website is astroquest.com, and a person can find all the links to all the information there.
Oh, okay. And John, did you have anything else you want to say before the end of the show?
Well, just one thing about the alien factor that we do see in front of us is the factor of the crop circles. They touch us, a different set of beings. And there was a question asked to him one time that a woman screamed out, "Well, talk to us." And a word was given, and I can't quite remember the breakdown of the word, but bottom line, it was a situation of, number one, it was like an intellectual word that gave, I'm not coming to the thoughts now what I had to ask, but anyhow, the idea of a crop circle is a communication factor that we're seeing physically, and that we're not developing our mind. In fact, we can't answer what the heck it replicates to some extent, but at the same time, it's there and it's in front of all of us. So yeah, that's something for next time.
For sure, it's definitely one of those things that people can look deeper into.
Well, thank you, and we're ending broadcast, and tomorrow we're going to have U.S. Olympic skater on, Shepherd Clark, and we're going to be talking about the art community. So tune in, and thank you again, Seven Mobar, for coming on. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone, and peace, and we'll be back tomorrow.
Okay. That was very nice. The old lady, she kept interrupting Seven. She would just stop him in the middle of talking about something crazy. She did it so many times. It's her show though, so it's like, okay. She just couldn't find a good break because he'll just go and go and go and go. But it's so funny. She was really trying to follow him.